Thanks for checking back in for another When I'm Not Podcasting. And make sure you go ahead and like, share, and subscribe for all the episodes that you always catch either on the YouTube channel right here. If you're listening on the audio, it's youtube.com/JBRASCO951. Or, of course, stick to the audio version where you can find it anywhere you find your podcasts. Fast Company reports on cable banking on fleecing sports fans. Now it's paying the price. Millions have now cut the cord. Cable companies are raising prices, banking on sports to keep people hooked. But it's starting to backfire because, hey, man, we're getting sports, but it doesn't feel like sports. It doesn't feel, when you look at the NBA, it looks like Summer League. When you look at Major League Baseball, it looks like practice. Really good. You're seeing no crowds. It doesn't matter if you just make a video game looking crowd, it doesn't make a difference. NASCAR might be one thing, but again, that's not something that you watch a lot on cable. That's available quite a bit of times on network TV. So you got the rabbit ears or your digital converter box. And then when you have, say, Major League Soccer, that's a little bit better, but again, it's not enough. And, if people really want to watch any sports, are they getting out of their way to go ahead and keep up with sports and really get into it? Or go to the sports bar and get consumed into it like they normally would? It's not like that right now. Sports has a different feeling, and I think people are really starting to second guess their thoughts about sports and how they feel about watching it, because it's just not the same anymore. I've tried to watch the NBA, and, I go get into it sometimes, but again, it's just like when I was watching wrestling, professional wrestling, in front of an old crowd. It's been tough to watch, but when you look at all of it all together, it's just tough. You're trying to watch, you're trying to get yourself engaged, and when there's not much of a crowd, especially even the NBA, you have the crowd with little Zoom cameras, people in fake seats, it just doesn't work. We're not going to get the feel, and obviously the ratings are saying it's the same thing as well. So that's why the cable companies need to go and raise their prices up, because they're losing track on their content. And older rehash reality show content, which there's not any new content to record or produce, and if they're doing anything, it's all on Zoom calls. It doesn't interest anybody. And they're not picking up shows from other markets to take care of that, because they can't do that, because Netflix or Hulu or BritBox or other places streaming have all the new content. That's what's really happening, is that there's a lot of new content coming from other spots, and they were already in the mix. This is where, surprisingly, Netflix and others, in the millions of dollars, the billions of dollars almost, that they were spending on content, it's paying off. This pandemic just created the perfect storm for them to go ahead and get people involved and engaged in content. And with a lot of movies, you also have movies that are making their way over to on demand instead, because they're not even being put out, even though they might have been possibly halfway decent returns, getting 30, 40, $50 million. Nothing towards the end of $100 million in a movie. I mean, maybe a couple. Maybe you could say the same for Trolls World Tour. You could say the same thing for If Bad Boys for Life would have had another 4 to 6 weeks or so in exhibition, but there's not that there. So that's what's going on. But back to sports. In the story from Fast Company, so cable and satellite TV providers have reported their second quarter earnings for 2020, and cord cutting has coming in. 1.3 million homes, more than 1.3 million homes dropped traditional cable or satellite TV, and most of these cord cutters didn't replace their standard bundle with a streaming one such as Sling TV, Hulu, or Live TV. No. So the industry lost roughly 1 million paid TV subscribers the last quarter, and over the last year, more than 5 million households have opted out of paid TV bundles. So again, in just 3 months, 1.3 million homes. And those are all people paying at least between $80 and $150, $200. That's a lot of money being lost. And cable, part of it is cost cutting. One of the things that you are going to feel like you can go ahead and drop altogether is cable. Because now, when people are having trouble struggling to go and keep the cable on board, yeah, if it's not part of a package in your community and your homeowners association, do you want to keep it? Is it necessary? So people are starting to opt for it. And there's no live sports, then absolutely it feels different. Not to mention the sports that we're watching now. It's not during the seasons they're normally run. NHL and NBA running right now feels off. We're not seeing training camp. We're not going to have college football for the most part. I have a video coming up on that. And that's where we are. It's just not a good place for anybody right now. So the raw decline of pay TV subscribers only tells part of the story. One of the interesting tidbits to come out of quarter earnings was that Philo, a $20 per month bundle of streaming TV channels, now has over 750,000 subscribers. Philo, I guess, is notable because it doesn't include any channels that carry sports. That's including local broadcast channels, no content with deals with either Disney, NBC Universal, Fox, or Warner Media, and only charges about a third of what streaming bundles cost, and has only raised prices once, and eliminated a cheaper tier for new subscribers. So Philo's booming. Most major TV networks aren't benefiting from the service's success because it's not carrying any of their channels. There you go. And the TV bundles are horrible. It's just falling apart. And continues to drop. And there is no stopping. So TV networks have been unwilling to offer their sports, news, and entertainment channels in separate packages. If Disney were to allow for TV packages that include ESPN, for instance, many of the 78 million people paying for TV bundles today would probably stop paying for ESPN overnight. So instead, networks have decided to play the game of chicken with customers, wagering that most people won't abandon big TV bundles if it means losing a particular channel, even at higher prices. Yeah, they don't want to make offer a la carte, and they do not want to make bundles where you just can't lose particular channels for fear of it, because it's on purpose made that way. It's a bet they're now losing as the best non-sports content becomes available outside of cable bundles on services like Netflix. Streaming TV has soared during the pandemic. TV bundle subscriptions are sliding, and networks have finally reached a point where they just can't keep raising prices to compensate for the lost revenue. And that's where they are. For TV networks, the reality is finally setting in, and they're starting to pack more sports into their standalone streaming services. So Viacom CBS is now offering UEFA soccer coverage to CBS All Access, and already has existing coverage of the NFL, PGA Tour, and National Women's Soccer League. NBC's Peacock will now have 175 Premier League matches, along with NFL wildcard playoff games and coverage of the U.S. Open. And Disney Plus is certainly open to any and all options for distributing sports to customers, and would have more to share at his investor conference in a few months. So that's where we are. Tough spot to be. I'd love to hear it from some of you that have already cut the cable cord yourselves just because of the pandemic, because I'll tell you, it's starting to sound like a good idea.